Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the way the Tory government were caught out, not for the first time, in lies about a claim to have met some promise from last year. In this case, Rishi Sunak and James Cleverly claimed that their legacy backlog of asylum claims had been cleared as promised. However, even on their own terms, this is not the case. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So, Rishi Sunak made a promise that the so-called legacy backlog of asylum cases would be cleared by the end of 2023. There was a fiddle immediately in the language being used, because what is the legacy backlog? I would argue it's the backlog of cases which built up when the Tories deliberately chose to stop processing claims at the usual rate. They cut back the number of people dealing with claims, seemingly in a deliberate effort to create a huge backlog, an accommodation crisis, and fuel the culture wars, which in the end has backfired badly on the Tories and given Reform UK the oxygen of publicity to attract voters away from the Conservatives. And some Tory MPs probably see this, and they want the problem dealt with properly. Potentially Rishi Sunak himself is of this mind, which is why he started to deal with asylum claims properly last year by, for example, agreeing a returns deal with Albania and massively increasing the number of people dealing with claims. I say massively increasing compared with the previous year, not compared with like more normal times. So it allowed him to make headway. However, he needed to show some progress, and it wasn't realistic to clear the actual backlog. So Sunak said he would clear the legacy backlog, and then he defined what the legacy backlog meant to suit himself. And he decided it means all claims that were made before the end of June 2022. In other words, claims that hadn't been dealt with after like a year and a half. However, as of the end of 2023, there are still 4,537 cases on this legacy backlog, as he defines, which have not been cleared. Sunak and Cleverly insisted that the backlog had been cleared and they'd met their promise. But when asked about it, James Cleverly said, well, we looked at 92,000 cases and there's 4,500 still being addressed. And he said, well, hang on. If 4,500 cases haven't been resolved, you haven't cleared them, he was told. Yes, we have, he said. So according to the Tories, looking at cases, even without decisions being made, counts as clearing them. Does that make sense to you? No, nor me neither. Nor, I suspect, does it make sense to the voters that he's trying to convince. And it's also stupid as well. Because what Rishi Sunak has done here, yet again, is he's turned a potential win into a loss. Because the current figures show that although the government were working to deal with older claims, they were ignoring newer claims as a consequence because they were focusing on the old claims, right? So that means new claims last year, it's like, well, we haven't got time to look at yours, we've got to deal with these, right? So that means the non-legacy backlog, according to Sunak's own definition, has doubled. However, the total number of claims in the system has gone down since Sunak took over. Why doesn't he just hail that as a win? Why doesn't he just plug that? He knew last year that what he was going to do was clear some of the backlog. He knew he wasn't going to clear all of it. That's why he came up with this legacy backlog idea. But it still meant setting parameters that you could fail to meet. Why didn't he just say, we've reduced the backlog by a third or something, tens of thousands, whatever it happens to be, not quite a third, but whatever percentage, it's still a sizable percentage. We've reduced the backlog by tens of thousands. Why didn't he sell that as a sort of win? Because that would be progress. You could present that as progress. And, if you just sold it in terms of the tens of thousands you'd cleared rather than a percentage, it actually sounds like a lot of progress. But no, he decided to make his promise clearing this legacy backlog, even though despite him defining what it meant, it was harder to do. Again, another political misstep there. And now that he's failed, he's resorted to lying because he needs to show that he can achieve things. He's like, no, we have achieved it. No, you haven't. And it's a lie which not only his key opponents are all too happy to point out, but it gives them further lines of attack as well. So for Reform UK, for example, because the Tories have been dealing with their backlog, they've been granting more asylum claims. So it's obvious, isn't it? The more claims you deal with, the more will be successful. The Home Office's own figures say about 3/4 of claims are valid. So Reform UK get to push the asylum buttons for their voters. Oh, they're giving more asylum to more people. And for Labour, they can point out how the backlog was less than 20,000 when Labour were last in power. And now it's about 100,000, just under, about 99,000. And that's 99,000. That is a big improvement. But Labour's Yvette Cooper was quick to point out that not only how Sunak has broken 5 promises, as she puts it, but she's also pointing out how much extra this is all costing the taxpayer. And there was another resultant problem as well. So as cleverly claimed that all small boat crossings would stop by the end of 2024. So it was like, oh, we've cleared this legacy backlog. No, you haven't. Yes, we have. You've got 4,500 cases left. Yeah, that doesn't matter. So now he's decided, right, for the end of 2024, my next trick, we're going to stop all the small boats. Small boat crossings will go down to 0. Now, being fair, I assume he means, near enough 0. I wouldn't hold them to account because one cheeky chappie takes a boat crossing in 2025, right? However, Downing Street didn't seem to like the idea of this promise and reportedly refused to confirm the pledge. Now, this is interesting for a few reasons. First, and mostly, it suggests that the Tories are definitely giving themselves the leg room to have an autumn election if necessary. Like I keep saying, they are trying to set the scene for a May election. I also believe that that is the best window for them. But they also seem to be making sure they've got the time to analyse the polls before making the decision. In other words, they're not committed right now. They're going to make that decision pretty much at the date they have to. If the polling remains bad for the Tories, yes, I see them waiting till autumn. If Sunak were committed to May, he wouldn't care about a promise for the end of 2024 because he could just say at the end of 2024, well, it's Labour that messed it up, isn't it? But if he's still in power after the summer, he won't be able to. Second, it suggests that the cabinet are still not coordinated. Ministers decide policy. James Cleverly as Home Secretary decides Home Office policy, of course. But you've got to get promises like this cleared before going public. Sunak's Chief of Staff still seems to be failing to ensure that ministers put their policy proposals through cabinet before publicising them. Either that or Cleverly is just such an idiot he keeps forgetting. Sunak got rid of Braverman because she was incompetent and kept going rogue. He may not have really fixed that with Cleverly's appointment at this rate. And the third thing of interest is that it suggests the government don't expect to make much progress this year. Remember, Rishi Sunak claims that his Rwanda plan will stop the boats and that there will be a huge reduction in channel crossings within days of the bill becoming law. Well, if that's the case, and you're rushing this through Parliament, why not endorse this promise then? Then you can always blame Labour if the bill is blocked in the Lords. Like, what's going on there? But aside from another case of Sunak painting himself into a corner full of bear traps, also shows that he's prepared to tell the most ridiculous lies ahead of the election. This is not the first false claim he's made about his own government's record. He claims, crime rates have fallen. No, they haven't. They've gone up. If you remove fraud, they've fallen. Yeah, you can't remove fraud because that's the single largest source of crime. Sunak also claims that he's halved inflation. It's like, well, there was no government policy which affected CPI inflation, so you didn't do anything. The type of inflation which the government could conceivably influence would be core inflation. Core inflation hasn't halved or anywhere near it. Then he claimed he'd gotten debt falling. No, debt's rising. And it's set to rise for years to come. Now he's claiming that he's dealt with the legacy backlog of asylum claims, which he defined, remember. He decided what a legacy backlog was. But the official figures show there's still just over 4,500 left to deal with. He is going to spend this year just arguing that black is white. You wait, this April, he'll be claiming he didn't cancel HS2, but it's actually already been built. But after 14 years, I think enough of the public are going to judge on results, and the government just do not have results. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.